Sometimes you have to walk, and this was just one of those times. I could have 100% signed something today. We actually had papers ready to be signed, but it just wasn't appropriate. I want to do it right. I'd much rather do it right than do it fast.
President Trump is on his way back from Hanoi without a deal after talks with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un abruptly broke down. The two leaders failing to agree on any steps towards denuclearization of the North. The president and Kim skipping a planned lunch meeting and a joint statement that had been scheduled. Joining me now, Ambassador Nick Burns, former ambassador to NATO and former Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, and MSNBC senior national security analyst Michael Leiter, the former director of the National Counterterrorism Center. There were so many things that these two men could have been talking about for all those hours, and yet they cut short their meeting. You would think that, Nick Burns, even without a deal, they could have kept meeting and filled out the schedule. How about bringing up human rights? How about not accepting Kim Jong-un's denial that he knew nothing about Otto Warmbier and his death or the gulags or anything else that they could have discussed?
It was striking, Andrea, this meeting ended so abruptly without lunch even being served. And you're right. I mean, there was a lot to talk about. The president had to walk away from what Kim Jong-un was offering because Kim has not dismantled any part of his nuclear apparatus. He's not serious, obviously, about these talks. To demand that we lift all sanctions was a very bad deal. The president was right to walk away from it. But I think the president really misstepped on the question of Otto Warmbier, the American student who was brutalized and murdered by the North Korean regime. For the president to essentially let Kim Jong-un off the hook when he's an authoritarian dictator who runs a family mafioso state, he's responsible for what happens in that country. And the president should have stood up for the memory of Otto Warmbier, for his parents, and for everyone who knew him. I thought that was a low point of what happened, Andrea. And the president obviously needs to rethink his strategy because he needs to get China, South Korea, Japan together on sanctions, put some leverage against Kim Jong-un because Kim now is credible. He's emerged from his isolation. If you're grading this on points, Kim is the winner of these two summits.
And the fact is that the first summit was widely criticized because they didn't get anything out of it, and they claimed they did. The president claiming, Michael, inaccurately that he had agreed, that Kim had agreed to denuclearize, and then, you know, sort of glossing over the fact that Pompeo goes, doesn't get a meeting, gets stiffed, doesn't get to meet with Kim Jong-un, that they never get the inventory of their arsenal. They don't have the basis to begin negotiating dismantling the nukes.
Well, there's no doubt at all that the president set extremely high expectations from before the first summit through this one, and he didn't remotely meet them. All that being said, Andrea, I have a little bit more sympathy for him. I certainly agree with Nick. The president did the only thing he could do in walking away. And I also agree it's pretty reprehensible that through none of this, human rights have been brought up because it's a central problem with the Korean regime. All that being said, to the extent that we are at least now talking, that's a good thing. And we have to remember where we were at the end of the Obama administration and, frankly, even worse, at the beginning of the Trump administration. And if nothing else, this year or so of engagement seems to have calmed down our president and gotten our president, President Trump, to look at Korea as a real problem worth engagement and not just really blathering on with threats. And I think that is at least a slight silver lining to what was clearly not a successful summit.
It does strike me, to both of you, that President Trump relies so much on his power of making deals, of the art of personality, the pen pal summit, if you will. And it reminded me a little bit, it's not a perfect analogy, Nick, of what we went through with Reykjavik, where after Geneva in 1985, everyone was talking about how Reagan and Gorbachev could work with each other, and all of a sudden you get into Reykjavik and a demand is made, and Reagan appropriately walked away from it, and it turned out to be exactly the right thing to do. But this had that kind of feel, and you were kind of glad that Mike Pompeo was there, that the Guardians were there to say, you cannot rely on this guy and the warm feelings and can't keep talking about him as your, quote, friend. Nick, am I...
Well, Andrea, I very much agree with Michael. I think that President Trump's been right to try diplomacy with Kim Jong-un. I also believe he's made the correct calculation. We need to engage this regime. Clearly, the buddy philosophy. I can become Kim Jong-un's best friend. He describes the love letters they write to each other. That hasn't worked. Kim has not been moved by that at all. So I think a return to more traditional diplomacy. The president has a very effective negotiator in Steve Biegun. And Secretary Pompeo is a very effective person. Let them lead. And you need to now, to get the Japanese, South Koreans, and Chinese to your side, you probably need to turn back on the military exercises that we have to have with South Korea. And you need to show some leverage here and some toughness. I think that's probably going to work better for the Trump administration in the short term. Sometimes the charm offensive can work. It clearly has not in this case.
Michael Leiter, the South Koreans were totally blindsided by the president seemingly shutting down those military exercises. He did that. He freelanced that in Singapore, and General Mattis, then defense secretary, pushed back and said, well, it's only a suspension. But he really was, and he seemed not to be aware that 2 weeks ago, the U.S. and South Korea agreed that they would pay more for these exercises.
Well, I think it is fair to say that this administration and President Trump specifically are neither focused on our allies nor focused on predictability. And both of those things cause many problems in many areas, to include North Korea. So certainly the cessation or the pause of the exercises, the president's expectations that he set with South Korea are now going to cause the president of South Korea some problems. So he really does. I think Nick is exactly right. This has always been a multilateral issue. This is the Korean Peninsula. This is very close to Japan. China is central to this. We have to work this in a multilateral way, and that's not something that this administration has mastered really in any context.
So true. Michael Leiter, Nick Burns, so glad to talk to both of you today.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.